And so it's not me living in the flesh anymore, but I've been crucified with Christ. No longer I who live, but Christ who lives within me. Right? Because if you look at this picture, this looks a lot like who live. You see a lot of white here, but here we're seeing God's Spirit just really filling all aspects of our life. Okay, Greg, I should have told Greg this, but we're going to have to be creative a little bit here on the point of application. Yeah, no problem. Greg was saving a tree, and I appreciate that, being a botany major, by using one piece of paper. So we need to find maybe that little white piece on the front of your page, or if you have another notebook paper. I want to wrap up tonight by sharing a little diagram which hopefully will bring all this together. And so you need to be able to find a space on a piece of paper where you can draw 3 circles like that.
Sure. Two. Here, just in case.
I'm like, does anyone else need paper? I might have a couple sheets too. You got some too, Carol? Okay. Okay, great. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate that. So go ahead and draw 3 circles on your page. And in the middle of each circle, draw what looks to be like a chair, like this. How many of you are familiar with these circles? Some of you, I see a couple hands, okay. All right, this guy here, these circles are going to parallel our chocolate and our milk over there. The first one is the natural man. The second one, I'm actually going to do it this way. The spiritual man. And the third one is the carnal man, or the carnal Christian. Thanks, Susie. That's great. Okay, so we're all born into this circle, and this is taken out of 1 Corinthians 2. We read the passage at the beginning of the hour, 14 to 3:3. And so the circle, I'm sorry to turn my back to you, but the circle represents our life. The chair represents your heart, or your controlling seat of emotion in your life. The self is represented by S. And so that means the natural man has self on the throne of his life. He's in control of his own life, just like that first cup of milk there. And Christ, represented by the cross, is outside of his life. And I'm going to draw a little line on the circle there, which represents the door. And it's like Christ is knocking on the door of this person's life, wanting to come in, but the doorknob's only on the inside. Jesus isn't going to force himself on anybody, but he's given us that invitation. We need to respond and open the door. As we do that, we move over here. But let me show you this first. This guy is in control of his own life, and his interest, which represented by these circles, might be family, it might be his job, it might be his hobbies, it might be his, whatever. Different aspects of his life. And so self is on the throne of his life. He's directing these different aspects of his life. And they kind of look random, they kind of look chaotic, they look like a discord or frustration or something like that. But welcome to the life of the natural man. I mean, we don't have to read too many newspaper articles or go online and see what's going on in the world today. We're in the condition that we are because people are making decisions based on self rather than based on Christ. And as a result of that, our world is in a lot of chaos, is in a lot of trouble. But we can go from this circle. Okay, wait, there we go. We can go from the natural man to the spiritual man. Whoops. And Colossians, I'll put this over here now. Colossians 1 13 and 14 makes reference to the idea of the kingdom of darkness and being transferred to the kingdom of his Son, or the kingdom of light, the kingdom of his beloved Son. And so when we make a decision for Christ, we make that, it's a one-time decision, it's a one-way street. There we go. And Christ comes to enter into our life, and we move from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of his Son. I asked the soccer player just last week, I drew this diagram out to him, and I said, this is darkness over here, and this is kingdom of light, or his beloved Son. I said, Gino, where are you at? He goes, I guess I'm in the kingdom of darkness. He understood. Remember how we talked about that? You got to understand where you are before you can see how Jesus is the answer. If you don't think you got a problem, you don't need a solution. And he goes, well, I said, where do you want to be, Gino? He goes, well, I'm happy being where I am right now. You know, it just crushes my heart, you know, when kids make those decisions. But so we make that decision. Guess what? Christ comes into our life, and now he takes the throne. He sits up on the throne of our life, and self is yielding to Christ. Only one person can sit on the throne at a time. Pastor Phil just used this illustration not long ago when he had that nice chair on the podium, remember? And as Christ, since he made us, he knows what's best for us. He's able to organize these things in our life. Diagrams only go so far, folks, but I think it helps us at least to see that these different aspects of our life are in harmony with God's plan. From our perspective, we may say, why is my toe hurting me? Or why did I lose my job? But from God's point of view, in control. Okay? He's sovereign, he loves us, he's in control. And so if we got Christ on the throne of our life, he's able to bring these things, whether they be relationships, our job, or hobbies, whatever it might be, our family, into perspective that best honors him and that's best for us too. However, oftentimes we don't stay here. And based on this illustration, we go here sometimes. And as sin creeps in, a lack of disobedience, the psalmists say in Psalm 66, verse 18, when I hide sin in my heart, the Lord will not hear me. And so there's a breakage, not in the relationship, but there's a breakage in the fellowship. And so we still have Jesus, but guess what? He's no longer on the throne. So we still have that relationship. Remember, we moved from the kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of his beloved Son, but now we're out of fellowship with him. And guess what? Our life looks a lot like that first cup of milk. Remember? So these interests and these activities are directed by self once again, and they look a lot like the natural man, because self is on the throne instead of Christ. And we're making decisions that seem best for us rather than are out of response and obedience to Christ. That making sense? I hope that's transformative for you. I mean, it's so liberating for me to be able to understand this and try to apply it on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so here's what Susie and I tell college students all the time. We draw out pictures like this. The good news is we can come back to that middle circle. And so what we try to do as we speak with college students is we try to say, help them to see, once they made that decision for Christ, recognize when they're living as a worldly Christian or as a carnal Christian, and help them to understand how they can more consistently live as a Spirit-filled Christian. And if you ask me, that's where we're going to be until we get to heaven someday, until we get into his presence. It's going to be making those decisions to yield our life to Christ. And if we do that, We're going to bring in much glory. We're going to produce much fruit. We're going to be abiding in the Spirit. We're going to be walking with Christ, walking in the light, this sort of thing. And so this piece here would be just the filling. Whoops. 1 L or 2? Fullness. Filling. Thank you. When you get up here in front of a board, your mind just sometimes goes dead, you know? And this is that Ephesians 5:18. You guys have this memorized already. 1 John 5:14 and 15. This is the command and the promise. So God's command is that he wants us to be filled with the Spirit. His promise is that he will fill us if we yield our lives to him. Okay? Questions, thoughts, comments?
Yeah,